In the silence of 60 years, a soul awakens to truth. Through pleasure and pain, wealth and want, the seeker discovers that all earthly delights fade like mirages in desert sand. But beyond the veil of matter lies an eternal realm where the heart finds its true home. Tonight, journey with us through the wisdom of ages, from the Quran's sacred verses to the insights of Al-Ghazali, from the patience of Job to the surrender of Rumi. Let this ancient knowledge guide you into peaceful rest, as we explore the question that every soul must answer. What lies beyond this fleeting world? Close your eyes now, and let your breathing become slow and steady. With each breath, feel yourself sinking deeper into comfort, deeper into peace. Tonight, you will journey through a story as old as humanity itself. A story of awakening, of seeking, of finding what the heart has always known but the mind must learn. I looked at myself and realized that I had revolved around the world approximately 60 times. 60 winters had come with their harsh winds. 60 springs had bloomed with their gentle promises. During this period, I witnessed the successive arrival of summer and winter, the continuous flow of blessings and hardships. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, once said, "The affair of the believer is amazing, for all of his affairs are good. If something good happens to him, he is grateful, and that is good for him. If something bad happens to him, he is patient, and that is good for him." These words echo now through 6 decades of memory. I have seen goodness and evil, kindness and cruelty walking side by side through the marketplace of life. I have tasted sweetness and bitterness, sometimes in the same cup, sometimes in the same hour. But I realize now, in the quiet wisdom that only time can bring, that no sweetness lasts forever and no bitterness is permanent. The Quran speaks this truth. With every hardship comes ease. Indeed, with every hardship comes ease. 94:5-6. All worldly pleasures are limited. This is the first great lesson, though it takes a lifetime to truly learn. Once they reach their peak, they cease to be enjoyable. They turn into habit and lose their charm. They become like a memorized joke that no longer makes us laugh, or a repeatedly told saying that no longer moves us. In other words, they are like a mirage that appears as water from afar, shimmering, promising, calling us forward across burning sands. But when you approach, when you arrive at the place where you were certain water awaited, you find nothing but sand, only sand. The poor see the rich man's car gliding through streets like a ship through calm waters. They see his building rising toward heaven like a mountain of glass and steel. They think that possessing these things will make them conquer the world, that happiness is merely a matter of acquisition. Yet once they own them, once the keys are in their hand and the deed bears their name, they no longer derive pleasure from them. The car becomes merely transportation. The building becomes merely shelter. Al-Ghazali wrote in his Revival of the Religious Sciences that the world is a bridge. Cross it, but do not build upon it. Let your body relax more deeply now. Feel your shoulders releasing their tension, your jaw unclenching, your breath flowing like a gentle river. A lover dreams of being with their beloved, sees all the joys of the world concentrated in their love, places all their hopes in closeness and union. In the darkness before dawn, they whisper prayers for a single glance. They compose poetry that compares their beloved to the moon, to the rose, to every beautiful thing creation has offered. But after marrying their beloved and spending 2 years together, those dreams begin to fade like morning mist when the sun rises. Those overwhelming pleasures die, or rather, they transform into something quieter, more steady, but also more ordinary. Only the memory of that first intoxication remains, sweet and distant as childhood. The Sufi poet Rumi understood this deeply when he wrote, "Everyone has been made for some particular work, and the desire for that work has been put in every heart. The desire itself is a teacher, but so too is its fulfillment and its inevitable transformation. The sick endure pain that colors every moment, that makes each breath a labor and each movement an ordeal. They find all pleasure in the cessation of suffering, in the dream of recovery. From their bed of pain, health seems like paradise itself. They promise themselves that if they recover, they will never take a single healthy day for granted. Yet when health returns, as it often does, And when the days of illness recede into forgotten corners of memory, they no longer find active pleasure in health. Health becomes the baseline, the new normal taken for granted once again. As the prophet said, there are two blessings which many people do not appreciate: health and free time. The young desire fame like desert travelers desire water. They rejoice when their name is heard on the radio, when their picture appears in newspapers, when strangers recognize them in the street. They imagine that recognition will fill the hollow place inside them. But when fame comes, when their name is on everyone's lips and their image fills every eye, fame becomes ordinary. It becomes a burden of expectations, a prison of others' perceptions. Ibn Sina, known to the West as Avicenna, achieved fame that echoed across continents. Yet he wrote, "The knowledge of anything, since all things have causes, is not acquired or complete unless it is known by its causes." Breathe deeply now, and with each exhale, release another layer of tension, another layer of attachment. Thus, I came to understand with certainty that material pleasures are narrow in scope, limited in duration, bound by the laws of diminishing returns. This understanding came not as a disappointment but as a liberation. For if material pleasures are limited, perhaps our seeking has been misdirected. Perhaps we have been, as the Quran describes, those who have taken their desires as their God. 25:43. Shortly after this realization, I read a brilliant story written by a great writer. It felt as if it transported me to an enchanted world, guiding me through a realm filled with poetry and fragrance. Every word seemed chosen by angels, every sentence a doorway to wonder. When the story ended, I felt as if I had awakened from a sweet and captivating dream, and in vain I attempted to return to that pleasure, to re-enter that world with the same freshness. But it was impossible. The second reading was never quite the same as the first. Yet something had shifted. This pleasure, the pleasure of beauty, of meaning, of transcendence, though it too was temporary, left something behind that material pleasures did not. It left a deepening, an expansion of the soul itself. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius, though not of our tradition, recognized something similar. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. But we can go deeper than the Stoics, for we have been given revelation as well as reason. When a person sheds the burdens of matter through contemplation, when they sit in silence and turn their attention inward, they begin to purify the self. They rise on wings of purity and detachment, so that the earth and all it contains appear insignificant, not in the sense of being worthless, but in the sense of being properly sized, properly understood. For the soul's pleasure, the pleasure of understanding, of presence, of connection with the divine, far surpasses the enjoyment of a hungry person's meal, the delight of the deprived upon attaining their desire, or the sense of power that riches and status bestow. Feel yourself rising now, gently, on those same wings, lifted by breath and awareness. The Quran speaks of this rising. O soul at peace, return to your Lord, well-pleased and well-pleasing. Enter among my servants. Enter my paradise. 89:27-30. This is not merely a promise of the afterlife, but a state that can be tasted even here, even now, in moments of true presence and surrender. And the self constantly longs for this lofty realm of the soul, this unknown world that lies beyond the reach of the five senses. Yet it only glimpses fleeting sparks from this realm, lights that vanish before fully appearing, breaths that stop before being fully drawn. It is like standing at the shore of an infinite ocean and feeling the spray on your face, knowing the vastness is there but unable to dive fully in while still bound to this body, this time, this place. Al-Ghazali described this state with profound precision. The soul is a stranger in this world, and its loneliness is only dispelled by the intimacy of remembrance and the presence of meditation. He spent years in seclusion after achieving worldly success as the most renowned scholar of his time, because he recognized that knowledge without experience, information without transformation, is like a lamp that gives light but no heat. When I saw that material pleasures are limited, ephemeral, subject to the law of adaptation, while spiritual pleasures leave a deeper and more profound impact, growing rather than diminishing with repetition, I realized, not by rational proof alone but by intuition, by a knowing that arose from the depths of being, that this material life is not everything. Beyond matter lies an unknown realm, a dimension of existence that the Quran describes, and they ask you about the soul. Say, "The soul is of the affair of my Lord, and you have not been given knowledge except a little." 17 hours, 85 minutes. Let yourself sink deeper into rest now, your body heavy and still, your mind light and open. Souls long for this realm and wish to soar toward it, but the heavy body restrains them, keeping them grounded like birds with clipped wings. Yet this restraint itself is purposeful. Lao Tzu taught that the clay is molded to form a cup, but it is the empty space within that makes it useful. Similarly, our limitation is not mere punishment but the very condition that makes our journey meaningful. We are here to learn something that cannot be learned in the realm of pure spirit. We are here to choose, to struggle, to grow through resistance. And this certainty, that there is more than matter, more than what the eye can see and the hand can grasp, constitutes the first step on the path of religion. Not religion as ritual alone, not religion as identity or tribe, but religion as reconnection, as the return journey of the soul to its source. The word itself suggests this. Religion shares roots with ligament, with binding and connecting. We are binding ourselves back to what we have always been, what we momentarily forgot in the intoxication of physical existence. I continued this intellectual reflection, this contemplation that had become my constant companion. I observed that I had immersed myself among people, explored their hidden aspects, studied their thoughts, both the living and the deceased, both those who walked in light and those who stumbled in darkness. I found that all humans, whether believers or deniers, whether nurtured in prayer cells or raised in dens of sin, whether they speak the name of God or claim to have no need of such concepts, all of them, when faced with immense hardship and unable to find relief through any human means, seek refuge in nothing but a power beyond all creation. In the hospital corridor when the doctor emerges with devastating news, in the moment when the car begins to skid on ice and time slows to syrup, in the instant when the earth shakes and buildings crumble, in the quiet desperation of insurmountable debt or incurable diagnosis, in these moments all cry out to something greater. "O Lord," they say, even if they do not know precisely whom they are addressing, even if they have spent years denying such existence. The atheist in the foxhole, the skeptic in the burning building, the proud self-made man when all his making comes undone, all find themselves calling to a power they cannot name but somehow know. Your breathing is so gentle now, so peaceful, carrying you deeper into this sacred space of rest. Thus I intuitively understood that believing in the existence of God is an innate faith in every human, what Islam calls fitra, the original nature, the factory setting of the human soul. The Prophet Muhammad said, "Every child is born upon fitra, and it is his parents who make him a Jew, Christian, or Magian." This is not to discount those traditions, but to point to something deeper, the original imprint of the divine upon every soul, the pre-existing knowledge that precedes all learning. Yet security, health, ambition, and desires veil this belief, concealing it behind layers of distraction and self-sufficiency. This is kufr in its literal sense, not merely disbelief but covering, concealing. A kafir is one who covers over this innate knowledge with the affairs of the world, like dust covering a mirror until the reflection can no longer be seen. But the mirror itself remains unchanged. The capacity for reflection remains. And in moments of absolute need, when all the dust is blown away by the winds of crisis, the soul sees itself reflected in the divine presence once more. Then reason supported this intuition like a second witness confirming testimony. For reason saw evidence of the divine in everything, in the perfection of the universe, in the marvels of the body, in the laws and mysteries of creation. Consider the eye that reads these words, more sophisticated than any camera ever designed. Consider the heart that beats without your conscious instruction, 70 times per minute, 40 million times per year, 3 billion times in a lifetime, never tiring, never forgetting its rhythm. Consider the dance of atoms, the architecture of crystals, the spiral of galaxies, the code written into DNA, more complex than any computer program yet containing the instructions for building a human being. The Quran invites this rational investigation. Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and earth, and the alternation of night and day, are signs for those of understanding. 3:190. God placed these patterns, these laws, these mysteries within the universe and gave us intellect, saying through creation itself, discover these laws and secrets with your reason. Study, investigate, wonder, and through wonder, arrive at worship. Let your mind rest now from its investigations, trusting in what the heart already knows. We have studied chemistry, physics, medicine, and astronomy, both on Earth and in nearby space, uncovering some of these truths with our telescopes and microscopes, our equations and experiments. We have mapped the genome, split the atom, measured the age of stars, traced the evolution of species. Yet all we have learned is but a tiny fraction of the whole, like a child who has learned to count to 10 and thinks they have mastered mathematics. The more we discover, the more we realize how much remains unknown. Each answer births 100 new questions. Each solved mystery reveals 100 deeper mysteries waiting beyond. Thus, reason affirmed what intuition had already whispered. This astonishing work could not exist without a creator. Nature cannot exist without the one who shaped it, gave it its patterns, established its laws. Creation cannot exist without a creator, and this creator cannot resemble this creation. Otherwise, as the theologians argue, he would be among them, subject to the same limitations, in need of a creator like them. The logic is inescapable, like following a chain of causes back to its source. He alone is eternal, without beginning or end, the Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. Before time began, he was. When time ends, he will be. Or rather, he exists outside of time altogether, for time itself is part of creation, part of the tapestry he wove. We are in time. He is in eternity, which is not endless time but the absence of time, the eternal now. He alone is singular, without partner or equal, without son or father, without peer or competitor. Say he is Allah the One, Allah the eternal refuge. He neither begets nor is born, nor is there to him any equivalent. Quran 1:12:1-4. This is not merely an article of theology but a description of reality itself. Multiplicity exists in creation. Unity exists only in the Creator. Breathe in unity, breathe out multiplicity, and rest in the space between. He alone possesses unlimited power, what we call omnipotence. Nothing can render him powerless. Mountains do not tire him. Oceans do not diminish him. The death of stars does not weaken him. He spoke, and the universe emerged from nothing. He speaks continuously, and the universe continues to exist. If he withdrew his speech for even an instant, all would return to void. He alone is just, perfectly, absolutely, infinitely just. He does not allow the oppressor to go unpunished, though the punishment may be delayed. The Quran assures us, never think that Allah is unaware of what the wrongdoers do. He only delays them for a day when eyes will stare in horror. 1442. Reason then looked upon this world, looked with clear eyes at the human story across centuries and continents, and saw that there are those who live and die as oppressors, tyrants who murder millions, whose names become synonyms for evil, yet who die peacefully in their beds surrounded by luxury. And there are those who live and die as the oppressed, innocents whose lives are cut short by violence or disease or deprivation, who know nothing but suffering from first breath to last. A just Lord cannot leave the oppressor unpunished, nor the oppressed without justice. The scales must balance, if not in this world, then in another. Thus, reason conclusively understood, through pure logical necessity, that there must be another life, another realm, another accounting. A place where the oppressed attain their rights, where the oppressor is punished, where the virtuous are rewarded, and where the wicked are held accountable. The story does not end with this world. The narrative is not complete at death. If a film were shown and cut off midway, before the conflict was resolved, before the hero's fate was determined, no viewer would believe it had truly ended. They would immediately ask, what happened next? Where is the rest of the story? This cannot be all. For even if the writer is human and fallible, the audience expects narrative completion, expects the account to be settled, expects justice to be served within the story's frame. Feel the truth of this in your heart. the knowing that there must be more, that the story continues. How then could a rational person believe that the story of life ends with death, before judgment has occurred and before the narrative is complete? How could we imagine that this life, with all its injustice and imbalance, with all its dangling plot threads and unresolved conflicts, is all there is? It would make the creator less just than even a mediocre human storyteller. It would make existence meaningless, a cosmic joke without a punchline, a question without an answer. From this, reason conclusively realized that this universe has a Lord, a Master, a Creator who is just and merciful, powerful and wise. And there is an afterlife following this world, a continuation of the story, a settling of accounts, a restoration of balance. The Arabic word for this is akira, the later, the final, the destination. And this world is dunya, the nearer, the lower, the temporary station. And I saw that I had reached this point first through spiritual intuition, through the inner knowing that comes from the soul's recognition of its source, and then through rational thought, through the careful construction of logical arguments built on observation and reason. Two paths leading to the same destination. Two witnesses giving the same testimony. I believed in God and in the day of judgment. But belief is just the beginning, not the end. It is the seed, not the fruit. The foundation, not the building. For even Satan believes in God. Indeed, he knows God exists with absolute certainty, having been in his presence. But this knowledge did not save him. Belief must lead to transformation, to submission, to what the Quran calls Islam. The active surrender to divine will, the alignment of one's entire being with the reality of God's existence and sovereignty. Let your body be completely relaxed now, surrendered to comfort, to support, to rest. Al-Ghazali wrote of the stages of faith. First comes ilm al-yaqin, the knowledge of certainty, which comes through proof and reason. Then ayn al-yaqin, the eye of certainty, which comes through direct experience and spiritual vision. And finally, haq al-yaqin, the truth of certainty, which comes through complete immersion and union, through becoming what one knows. I had arrived at the first stage, but the journey was far from over. For knowing that fire burns is different from feeling its heat. Knowing that water quenches is different from tasting its coolness. Knowing that God exists is different from experiencing his presence, and different still from surrendering entirely to his will. The Prophet Muhammad described three aspects of religion in what is known as the Hadith of Gabriel. When the angel came to him in human form and asked about Islam, Iman, and Ihsan, he gave three answers that mapped this progression. Islam is the outward submission, the 5 pillars, the actions of the body. Iman is the inward belief, the 6 articles of faith, the convictions of the heart. And Ihsan is perfection. To worship God as if you see him, for even if you do not see him, he sees you. This is the destination. To live in constant awareness of the divine presence, to make every action an act of worship, to see God's hand in every event and God's wisdom in every trial, not as a constant emotional high that is neither possible nor necessary, but as a deep, steady orientation of the entire being toward the eternal. Your breath continues, steady and soft, like waves on a peaceful shore. The Sufis developed elaborate maps of this journey. They spoke of stations and states, of expansion and contraction, of annihilation and subsistence. They described the stages: repentance, abstinence, renunciation, poverty, patience, trust, satisfaction. Each stage builds on the last, like climbing a mountain where each height reveals new vistas and new heights beyond. Lao Tzu, from a different tradition, arrived at similar insights. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. He spoke of Wu Wei, action through non-action, effortlessness through alignment with the natural order. Islam calls this tawakkul, reliance on God, trust in the divine plan. The wise person does not resist the river's flow but learns to move with it, to surrender to it, finding in that surrender not weakness but perfect strength. There is a hadith that speaks to this. Amazing is the affair of the believer. Verily, all of his affairs are good for him. If something pleasing happens to him, he is grateful, and that is good for him. If something harmful happens to him, he is patient, and that is good for him. This is only for the believer. This is not passive acceptance of injustice, but active acceptance of reality as the arena in which we work for justice. We change what can be changed, accept what cannot be changed, and develop the wisdom to know the difference. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught something similar. Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. But the Muslim adds to this, and trust that what happens is from God's wisdom, even when you cannot see it. For God's wisdom is infinite, and our vision is limited. We see only the moment, the fragment. God sees the entire story, from beginning to end, and beyond end to eternity. In the Quran, God says, "And it may be that you dislike a thing which is good for you, and that you like a thing which is bad for you. Allah knows, but you do not know." 2:216. How many times have we looked back on our lives and seen that what seemed like disaster at the time was actually a doorway to blessing? How many times has loss prepared us for gain? Has difficulty strengthened us for future trials? Has closed one door only so that a better door could open? Let yourself trust now, deeply and completely, in the wisdom of all that has been and all that will be. The story of Prophet Joseph, told beautifully in the Quran, illustrates this perfectly. Betrayed by his brothers, thrown in a well, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned unjustly. Every event seemed worse than the last, every chapter darker than the one before. Yet each event was precisely positioned to bring about his eventual elevation to authority in Egypt, from which position he could save his family and an entire region from famine. At the end, he tells his brothers, "You intended evil for me, but God intended it for good." What human wisdom saw as catastrophe, divine wisdom was weaving into blessing. This is the perspective that transforms everything, the ability to zoom out from the moment and see the larger pattern, or better yet, to trust that there is a larger pattern even when we cannot see it. It is the difference between the child crying over a painful injection and the parent who knows the injection prevents disease. The child sees only the pain. The parent sees the protection. We are children, and God is infinitely wiser than any parent. But this trust, this surrender, this tawakkul, does not come automatically. It must be cultivated through practice, through repeated choosing, through the gradual training of the soul. This is why we have spiritual practices: prayer, fasting, charity, pilgrimage, remembrance. Not because God needs these actions from us, but because we need them to shape our souls, to remind us of reality, to reconnect us with the source. Prayer, salah, is described as the ascension of the believer. 5 times a day, we physically enact surrender, placing our foreheads on the ground in the ultimate gesture of humility. We interrupt the flow of daily life to remember who we are and who God is. We turn toward Makkah, symbolically turning toward the divine center. We recite words that have been recited by billions across 14 centuries, joining ourselves to that vast river of submission. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." But the Muslim adds, "And I will meet them with patience and kindness, because God has commanded it, and because they are my brothers and sisters in humanity, and because I too have my faults that others must bear." Your mind is so quiet now, like a clear pool reflecting the night sky. Fasting, Psalm, in the month of Ramadan and at other times, teaches us that we are not ruled by our appetites, that we can say no to the body's demands, that we have a spiritual will that transcends physical need. From dawn to sunset, we abstain from food, drink, and marital relations, and in this abstention we remember those who have no choice, who are hungry not for a day but for a lifetime. We develop compassion, self-discipline, and God-consciousness. Charity, zakat, reminds us that our wealth is not truly ours but a trust from God, that we are caretakers not owners, that the excess we have belongs to those who have less. We give not as an optional kindness but as an obligation, recognizing the rights of the poor in the wealth of the rich. And beyond obligatory charity, there is sadaqah, voluntary giving, the cultivation of generosity as a character trait, the practice of letting go. Pilgrimage, Hajj, once in a lifetime if we are able, strips away all markers of status and wealth. In simple white cloths, Rich and poor, powerful and weak, famous and unknown stand as equals before their Lord. They circumambulate the Kaaba as if practicing the orbits of planets around the sun, as if enacting in physical space the spiritual reality that all creation revolves around the divine center. And remembrance, dhikr, the constant invocation of God's names and attributes, the practice of bringing awareness back to the divine presence again and again. O you who believe, remember God with much remembrance. 33:41. For the heart is like a garden that will grow weeds if not tended, and remembrance is the cultivation that keeps it clear for the flowers of virtue to bloom. These practices shape the soul the way a sculptor shapes clay, the way a gardener shapes a tree. They are not burdens but gifts, not restrictions but liberations. For what is freer, the person enslaved to every passing desire, or the person whose desires have been trained to align with what is truly good? What is freer, the person tossed by every wind of circumstance, or the person anchored in certainty and trust? Let yourself be shaped now by this wisdom, gently molded by truth, transformed by peace. The great scholar Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya wrote that the heart has two fundamental needs: worship and love. It must worship God, and it must love God. Everything else is derivative. When the heart worships other than God, power, wealth, status, pleasure, it becomes enslaved to those things, which are inconstant and unreliable. When the heart loves other than God supremely, it sets itself up for loss and grief, for everything in creation is temporary. But when the heart worships God alone and loves Him supremely, it has found its true orientation. Other loves are not eliminated but properly ordered. We love our spouses, our children, our friends, but that love is enhanced, not diminished, when it flows from our love of God rather than competing with it. We enjoy food, beauty, comfort, but we are not enslaved to them. We can lose them without being destroyed, because our fundamental joy is in what cannot be lost. This is the secret that the saints and sages discovered, that the prophets taught, that the Quran reveals. Happiness is not found in having more but in wanting less, not in controlling circumstances but in accepting them, not in independence but in dependence on the one who is truly independent. The Prophet Muhammad, in one of his most profound statements, taught, "Be in this world as if you are a stranger or a traveler passing through." This does not mean to be cold or detached, to refuse to love or engage. It means to maintain the awareness that this is not our final home, that we are traveling through on the way to somewhere else, that we should travel light and travel consciously. What does a wise traveler do? They enjoy the scenery but don't try to carry the mountains home with them. They rest at inns but don't mistake the inn for home. They form friendships with fellow travelers but know that paths will diverge. They appreciate each meal without demanding it last forever. They face difficulties as part of the journey, not as aberrations that shouldn't happen. This perspective transforms everything. The good is received with gratitude but without clinging. The bad is endured with patience but without despair. Success does not intoxicate. Failure does not devastate. For the traveler's eyes are on the destination, and every step brings them closer. Your journey tonight brings you deeper into rest, deeper into peace, closer to the sacred center of your being. The Quran describes the righteous, those who believe and whose hearts find rest in the remembrance of God. Verily, in the remembrance of God do hearts find rest. 13:28. This is the rest we seek. Not the absence of challenges, not the elimination of difficulty, but the deep peace that comes from alignment with truth, from trust in divine wisdom, from surrender to divine will. Ibn Atta Allah al-Sakandari, a Sufi master, wrote in his Book of Wisdom, "One of the signs of relying on one's own deeds is the loss of hope when a downfall occurs." In other words, when our confidence is in our own abilities, our own achievements, our own merits, we are devastated when we fail. But when our confidence is in God's mercy, we can fail repeatedly and still maintain hope, for His mercy is infinite and our merit was never the point. He also wrote, "How can the heart be illumined while the forms of creatures are reflected in its mirror? Or how can it journey to God while shackled by its passions? Or how can it desire to enter the presence of God while it has not yet purified itself of the stain of forgetfulness?" These are the questions every seeker must face. What prevents my heart from knowing God? What attachments chain me? What illusions blind me? The answer is different for each person, but the general categories are similar. We are attached to comfort, to security, to certainty, to control. We are attached to others' opinions of us, to our self-image, to our narratives about who we are. We are attached to our plans, our expectations, our ideas about how things should be. And these attachments, these chains must be loosened. Not all at once, not through violent effort, but gradually, through awareness and willing surrender. The Stoics called this process a more fatty love of fate, the practice of wanting what happens to happen, of embracing reality exactly as it is. But the Muslim goes beyond even this, for we don't just love what happens, we trust that what happens is from a wise and loving Creator, that there is purpose in it even when we cannot see it. Breathe in acceptance, breathe out resistance, and rest in perfect trust. There is a famous story of a desert wanderer who lost his camel. He searched everywhere, growing more and more anxious, until finally he gave up in exhaustion and despair, saying, "It is God's will." At that moment, he turned and saw his camel standing nearby. The lesson is not that we should be passive. He had searched thoroughly. But after we have done what we can do, we must release the outcome, trust the process, accept what comes. Another story tells of a man who complained to a sage about his many troubles. The sage replied, "You have two choices. Either accept what happens with patience and trust, or reject it with anxiety and misery. But either way, what happens will happen. So which do you prefer?" The man, seeing the wisdom, chose acceptance. His circumstances didn't change immediately, but his relationship to them did, and that changed everything. This is the practice. In every moment, in every circumstance, to choose trust over anxiety, acceptance over resistance, gratitude over complaint. Not because circumstances are always good. They're not. Not because pain isn't real, it is. But because this attitude, this orientation, this way of being is itself the goal. The external situation is the arena in which we practice. The internal state is what we're cultivating. Al-Ghazali identified 40 destroyers and 40 preservers of the heart. Among the destroyers, pride, envy, hatred, stinginess, love of wealth, love of status, anger, malice, and many others. Each one is like a disease that clouds the heart's mirror, preventing it from reflecting divine light. Among the preservers, gratitude, patience, trust, sincerity, generosity, humility, love, compassion, and their companions. Each one is like medicine that clears the heart, polishes the mirror, allows the light to shine through. The work of a lifetime is to diminish the first list and strengthen the second. To notice when pride arises and gently set it down. To feel envy beginning and redirect toward gratitude for what one has and joy for others' blessings. To catch oneself in stinginess and counter it with generosity. To see anger rising and meet it with patience. This is jihad struggle in its truest and most important form. Not the outer struggle against external enemies, though that has its place, but the inner struggle against the enemies within. The nafs, the ego, the lower self that wants to be God rather than worship God. Let all struggle cease now, all effort dissolve. As you sink deeper into this sacred rest, the Quran describes 3 stages of the nafs. First, nafs al-amara, the commanding self, the ego that constantly demands and desires, that wants pleasure and avoids pain, that is never satisfied. This is the self that most people live from most of the time, pulled by appetite and aversion, enslaved to the next craving. Second, nafs al-lawama, the blaming self, the conscience that has awakened enough to see its own faults, that feels guilt and regret, that wants to do better but still struggles and falls. This is the self of the sincere seeker who has begun the journey but has far to go, who sees the distance between what they are and what they aspire to be. Third, nafs al-mutmainah, the peaceful self, the soul at rest, the heart that has found its home in God. This is the self that has been transformed, purified, aligned. This is the destination, though few reach it completely in this life. It is achieved through lifelong practice, through constant choosing, through God's grace more than our effort. For ultimately, we cannot transform ourselves through willpower alone. We can only prepare the ground, plant the seeds, water them faithfully. But the growth comes from God. The flowering is grace, not achievement. We make the effort, but the result is gift. This is why, in the daily prayers, we recite, "You alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help." Quran 1:5. Both are necessary. We worship, we make the effort, we practice, we strive. But we ask for help, we recognize our need, our dependence, our inability to succeed on our own. The two together create the proper balance. Effort without pride, humility without passivity. The Prophet told his companions to tie their camels and trust in God. Both are necessary. Tie your camel. Take the practical steps. Make the effort. Use your intelligence and resources. But then trust in God, release the outcome, accept what comes, know that your security is ultimately in Him, not in the rope that ties the camel. Let your breathing tie you gently to this moment, and let your trust release you into peace. Rumi wrote, "You think because you understand one you must also understand two, because one and one make two. But you must also understand and." The mystical understanding that unites the apparent opposites, effort and surrender, action and acceptance, human will and divine decree. Not choosing one over the other but holding both together, living in the creative tension between them. This is what the scholars call qadr. Divine decree, the understanding that God knows all, wills all, creates all, yet humans have real choice, real responsibility, real agency. It is a paradox that cannot be fully resolved by reason alone, yet it can be lived, embodied, understood through experience. We are both determined and free, both puppets and players, both entirely dependent and genuinely responsible. Ibn Arabi, the great Sufi master, spoke of the human as the perfect mirror reflecting divine attributes. God is the merciful and we can show mercy. God is the generous and we can give generously. God is the patient and we can practice patience. God is the forgiving and we can forgive. In embodying these attributes, we actualize our true nature, fulfill our purpose, become what we were created to be. This is not becoming God, that is impossible, blasphemous, a category error. It is reflecting God, manifesting divine attributes in the human sphere, being conduits for divine qualities to flow into the world. It is being, as the Prophet was described, walking Quran, embodied revelation, lived truth, enacted wisdom. And this is the purpose of human existence, stated clearly in the Quran. I did not create jinn and humans except to worship me. 51:56. But worship here is not merely ritual, though ritual has its place. It is the complete orientation of one's being toward God, the making of every action sacred through intention, the sanctification of the ordinary through awareness. Washing dishes becomes worship when done with presence and gratitude. Raising children becomes worship when done with patience and love. Working becomes worship when done with integrity and excellence, remembering that God sees all. Eating becomes worship when done with gratitude and moderation. Sleeping becomes worship when the last thought before sleep is remembrance of God. Let your sleep now be worship, your rest be prayer, your dreams be gifts from the divine. There is a beautiful hadith qudsi, words of God transmitted through the Prophet but not part of the Quran. My servant continues to draw near to me with voluntary acts of worship until I love him. When I love him, I am his hearing with which he hears, his sight with which he sees, his hand with which he strikes, and his foot with which he walks. This is the ultimate destination. To become so transparent to the divine that God acts through you, sees through your eyes, speaks through your words, loves through your heart. Not that you disappear, but that you become what you truly are, a vessel, an instrument, a conduit for divine will to manifest in the world. This is fana, annihilation of the false self, dissolution of the ego, death before death. And beyond it is baka, subsistence in God, abiding in truth, life after death while still alive. The mystics describe this as intoxication and sobriety, as mystical union and sober awareness, as losing oneself and finding oneself. But these are not states we can force or manufacture through effort alone. They are gifts, graces, openings that come when the heart is ready, when the vessel has been emptied and cleansed. Our work is to prepare, to practice, to purify. God's work is to open, to reveal, to transform. And always we must remember, the highest state is not the dramatic mystical experience, the ecstatic vision, the supernatural gift. The highest state is steady devotion, consistent practice, patient perseverance. The prophet himself said, "The most beloved deeds to God are those that are most consistent, even if they are small. Better to pray 5 minutes every day than 5 hours once a month. Better to give a little regularly than a lot once a year. Better to maintain kindness steadily than to oscillate between intense service and complete neglect." This is the way of wisdom, the path of balance, the middle way that Islam prescribes. Your heartbeat is steady and calm now, your breath flowing like a gentle tide, carrying you deeper. The Quran describes itself as guidance for those who are mindful of God, who believe in the unseen, establish prayer, and spend out of what we have provided for them. 2:2-3. This is the profile of the believer. Mindfulness of God, belief in what cannot be seen with physical eyes, regular practice of connection through prayer, and generosity with one's resources. Mindfulness, taqwa, is often translated as God consciousness or piety, but its root means to protect, to guard, to shield. It is the constant awareness that God sees us, knows us, surrounds us. It is living from the knowledge that we are always in the divine presence, that there is no private moment, no hidden action, no secret thought. This awareness guards us from wrongdoing not through fear but through love, not through surveillance but through relationship. Belief in the unseen, the angels, the afterlife, the divine decree, the realm beyond matter, requires a different kind of knowing than scientific proof. It requires opening to intuition, to revelation, to transmitted wisdom. It requires trusting that reality is larger than what our limited senses perceive, that there are dimensions we can't measure but that are nonetheless real. Prayer, salah, as we've discussed, is the regular reconnection, the appointed meetings with God, the structure that punctuates the day with remembrance. 5 times, we turn away from worldly concerns to affirm what is ultimately real and important. And spending infaq, whether obligatory charity or voluntary giving, physical action or emotional support, material resources or time and attention, is the natural overflow of faith. When the heart is full of God's love, it cannot help but give. When one remembers that all provision comes from God, holding it tightly makes no sense. These 4 qualities, mindfulness, faith in the unseen, prayer, and generosity, form the foundation of spiritual life. Everything else builds on this base. Master these 4 and everything else will follow. Neglect these 4 and everything else will be unstable. As you rest now, feel these qualities settling into your heart like seeds planted in fertile soil. The life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, demonstrates this balance perfectly. He was married, had children, engaged in trade, led a community, governed a state, defended his people in battle. He was fully human, fully engaged with life. Yet he also spent long nights in prayer, fasted often, remembered God constantly, lived simply despite later having access to wealth, and treated everyone, rich and poor, slave and free, with dignity and compassion. He wept at the death of loved ones. He laughed at jokes. He played with children. He helped with household chores. He showed love to his wives. He forgave those who wronged him. He was gentle to the weak and firm with the oppressive. He was both mystic and statesman, both saint and ordinary man. This is the model, not to escape the world but to sanctify it, not to reject the body but to honor it while remembering its place, not to abandon relationships but to conduct them with awareness and wisdom. The middle way between monks who deny the flesh and hedonists who are enslaved to it. The balance between ascetics who reject the world and materialists who worship it. God created this world beautiful, and we are permitted, indeed encouraged, to enjoy its lawful pleasures, but always with limits, always with gratitude, always with remembrance that these are means, not ends, gifts to be appreciated, not gods to be worshipped. Eat, but don't overeat. Enjoy beauty, but don't become enslaved to it. Seek comfort, but retain the ability to be comfortable in discomfort. Love people, but don't make them into gods. Pursue goals, but don't let achieving them define your worth. Work hard, but trust in God more than in your effort. This balance, this middle way, is the essence of Islam. Not too hot, not too cold. Not too tight, not too loose. As the Prophet advised regarding religious practice, be moderate and consistent. Don't exhaust yourself with excessive devotion one day, then crash the next. Maintain a steady, sustainable pace. This is wisdom. Let your breath maintain its steady pace now, consistent and gentle, like the rhythm of waves. The four great imams who founded schools of Islamic jurisprudence, Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, and Ahmad, despite their differences in detail, all agreed on this fundamental principle. The law exists to serve human welfare, to protect five essentials: religion, life, intellect, lineage, and property. Everything in Islamic law can be traced back to protecting one or more of these five. Prayer and religious practice protect religion itself, keeping the connection alive. Prohibition of murder protects life. Prohibition of intoxicants protects intellect. Marriage law protects lineage and family. Property law protects wealth and resources. Everything serves human flourishing, both in this life and the next. For Islam is not about arbitrary rules imposed by a capricious deity. It is about wisdom, about guidance for how to live well, about structure that frees rather than constrains. Like a river needs banks to flow powerfully, like a garden needs boundaries to flourish, human life needs structure to thrive. Freedom is not the absence of all limits. That is chaos, not liberation. True freedom is knowing what limits serve your highest good and choosing them willingly. The person who cannot say no to any desire is a slave, not a free person. The person who has disciplined their desires so that they desire what is good is truly free. This is what the spiritual path offers. Not suppression of desire, but transformation of desire. Not fighting against yourself, but aligning all parts of yourself toward your true good. It is the difference between a horse fighting its reins and a trained horse responding to the lightest touch. Between an orchestra where everyone plays different songs and an orchestra perfectly harmonized. Your body, mind, and soul are harmonizing now, coming into perfect alignment, peace flowing through every part of your being. The Quran teaches that humans are made of both clay and spirit. When I have fashioned him and breathed into him of my spirit, then fall down in prostration to him. 1529. We are earth and heaven, matter and meaning, animal and angel. The mistake is to identify completely with one side while denying the other. Materialism says we are only body, only matter, only biochemical processes. Therefore, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die, and that's the end. This is a half-truth that misses the depth of human experience, the reality of consciousness, the longing for transcendence. But extreme asceticism makes the opposite mistake, saying we are only spirit trapped in flesh, that the body is prison or enemy, that salvation comes through escape from materiality. This too is a half-truth that rejects God's creation, that fails to honor the vehicle he gave us for this journey. Islam teaches the middle way. We are both inseparably united in this life, destined to be separated at death, destined to be reunited body and soul in resurrection. Therefore, honor both. Care for the body. Feed it, rest it, clean it, exercise it. But don't make it a god. Develop the soul. Purify it, educate it, connect it to its source. But don't despise the body. Fast sometimes to remind the body who's in charge. Feast sometimes to celebrate God's blessings. Withdraw sometimes in solitude for prayer and reflection. Engage sometimes with community, family, responsibility. Both and, always both and, never either or. This is the dance, the sacred dance between poles. Action and rest, solitude and society, effort and surrender, justice and mercy, transcendence and immanence. The spiritual master is not the one who achieves one pole perfectly, but the one who dances skillfully between them, knowing when each is appropriate. Feel yourself dancing now in the stillness, moving in the rest, alive in the peace. As the night deepens and your sleep approaches, remember the practice of Prophet Muhammad. to sleep in a state of ritual purity, to lie on the right side, to place the right hand under the right cheek, to recite remembrances of God until sleep takes over. This makes sleep itself a sacred act, a minor death from which we will be resurrected in the morning. For sleep is indeed a death. We lose consciousness. Our souls are taken up. We dream in realms we don't understand. And waking is a resurrection. Consciousness returns. We rise from the bed as from a grave. We're given another day, another chance. The Quran speaks of this. It is He who takes your souls by night and knows what you have done by day. 6 hours, 60 minutes. Every night is practice for the final death. Every morning is practice for the final resurrection. This is why the morning prayer includes the words, "Praise be to God who gave us life after causing us to die, and to Him is the resurrection." We died in sleep. We were resurrected in waking. We will die at death. We will be resurrected on the last day. Understanding this, how can we not take each day seriously? How can we waste the gift of another morning? But also, understanding this, how can we not sleep in peace? If we trust God with our soul during sleep, why not trust Him with our soul at death? If He resurrects us each morning for years or decades, why doubt that He will resurrect us on the last day? This trust, this certainty, this peace, this is the goal. This is what the 60 years of life have taught, what the observation of pleasures and pains has revealed, what the contemplation of existence has confirmed. God is real, God is just, God is merciful. Death is not the end. The story continues. Let yourself drift now toward that temporary death called sleep, trusting completely, surrendering fully. In your dreams tonight, may you walk in gardens of understanding. May you drink from fountains of wisdom. May you see with the inner eye that perceives what the outer eye cannot. May you taste the sweetness of divine proximity. May you feel the embrace of infinite mercy. And may you wake, when morning comes, refreshed and renewed, grateful for another day, ready to walk the path with fresh steps, knowing that every step brings you closer to the destination that is simultaneously before you and already here, always waiting and never absent. For God says in the Quran, "We are closer to Him than His jugular vein." 50:16, closer than breath, closer than thought, closer than the blood that pulses through your veins. Not distant in some far heaven, but intimately near as awareness itself. And He says, "Remember me, and I will remember you." 2:152, the simplest practice, the most profound promise. Simply remember, turn your attention toward the divine, and He will turn His attention toward you, His infinite attention, His complete awareness, His perfect love. As you sink into sleep now, whisper in your heart, Allah, just that, the name that contains all names, the word that points to the reality beyond all words. Allah, let it be your last thought, your final anchor, your doorway to rest. And as consciousness fades and sleep takes you, know that you are held, protected, known, loved. You are not alone. You were never alone. You will never be alone. For He who created you watches over you, and His watching is not burden but blessing, not surveillance but care. Sleep now, beloved soul. Sleep in peace, in trust, in surrender. Sleep knowing that tomorrow is in His hands, that your life is in His hands, that your death will be in His hands, that your resurrection will be in His hands. And those hands, though we speak metaphorically, for He has no physical form, those hands are infinite mercy, perfect wisdom, complete love. Sleep now. Sleep in the arms of the eternal. Sleep, and in sleeping worship. Sleep, and in sleeping remember. Sleep, and in sleeping return home. For home is not a place but a presence. Home is not somewhere you go but somewhere you are. Home is the awareness of the divine, here, now, always. Home is where you are when you are aware. Home is this moment surrendered. Home is this breath conscious. Home is this heartbeat grateful. Home is here. Home is now. Home is God. And you are home. You have always been home. You only forgot. But now you remember. And in remembering you rest. And in resting you are free. Completely, perfectly, eternally free. Sleep now, beloved. Sleep. May your sleep be deep and healing. May your dreams be blessed. May you wake in peace and gratitude. May this journey continue, day by day, breath by breath, until the final journey home. Amin.